welcome. We are continuing our working day. I give the floor to the volunteer of this Sector A, Victoria Myroshnychenko, and Diana Makarova, head of the Diana Makarova Foundation, and the fighter Robin. We are going to talk about the current overview of the Diana Makarova Foundation activities. Good afternoon. What can I say? I'm Victoria Myroshnychenko. I come from Poltava. It so happened that I'm involved in volunteer activities owing to this wonderful lady. She is my actual godmother, Makarova Diana, and here's Robin, who always helps me to deliver the aid and the internet or assistance to our guys. He's the head of our convoys, Diana Makarova Foundation. I've been a volunteer for 18 months now. I started from Maidan, the Maidan times, together with Victoria and Robin. We are just unusual volunteer group. We are coming fewer and fewer. We are talking about the frontline volunteers. They also calling the intersectoral volunteers. What does it mean? It means that we collect and gather whatever is required for the army. Then we reach the front line and we visit all these sectors, and we, well, generally speaking, we deal not only with the commanders, but also with the privates. In other words, we see the gaps, the holes, the problems faced by the front, which can be seen only when you are on the side, specifically on the front line. My name is Alexander Gurza. My task or my mission is to bring all the personnel and the freight to those positions, to those sites we have to reach, to those soldiers who are at the utmost front line and the first line of defense, so to say, and then to return all those vehicles and personnel healthy and sound, live and sound, back. As far as I know, this is not really safe task. Victoria is well shot a volunteer, because not recently a fragment of a shell actually hit her vest. Unfortunately, we work in those places where there is a lot of shooting and bombardment, and people in our country know that there is a warfare, but then unfortunately our citizens somehow start to forget that we have warfare. Why? Because we have truce or the ceasefire regime, and everybody believes that maybe ceasefire or truce means the end of the war. But we know that during this period of time, approximately the same number of people are killed. For example, for 2 or 3 months of truce, we had the people were killed in a number they are no less than those who were killed in Ilovaisk encirclement. We know the needs of the army. We know the guys who still, 1 year after the beginning of the war, they still wear the same, let's say, footwear, let's say, wrapped with the adhesive tape. We know that the army, they started to re-equip the army, but you still see a lot of those places where the uniforms or the footwear never reach those guys. We know those guys, it's difficult to say, they have to collect the scrap iron or scrap metal to buy it and to sell it and buy, let's say, the machine guns to be armed, we would like everybody to heed to us more. We know what the information carried by Facebook, that in Kiev there's a lot of different campaigns, help the army. Maybe there are some kind of boxes where they actually stroll and collect the money for the army, and somebody puts some money in those boxes. But we have to understand who is who. There was a lot of fraudulent activities of, let's say, those who are involved in this kind of fraudulent actions. How we can do that? How we can verify who you pay money to? You have to do that all the time. We try to provide the reports. We try to tell and show where we carried our cargo freight. We are always open for communication. We are always ready to take with us any kind of officials who would like. Most of them say, okay, the army has everything they need and nothing else is required. And we just ask them, request them, join us in going there. But for some reason, they never do that. I can say that we offered, we are going to take it to the front line and you'll be safe and sound. And said, no, they're shooting there. And those guys, young people who are there in the front line, the first line of defense, and they believe us, they trust us, they know that we bring them whatever they need, and so they ask us already all the time, bring us one of the officials, the deputy, or else we'll show what is war. We know the needs of the army with everyday needs. I already planned another visit or trip there. We have the list of what they need, the different, divisions or groups. But today I had a call and they said, urgently we need 7 pairs of footwear with the high top. I don't have enough money for that, this is not a joke, this is really so, we do need the money. I talked to a young guy, a handsome guy, but he needs this kind of boots for let's say with the size of 44, which is approximately 10 and a half or 11 size in the United States. And the matter is that there are some sites or the telephone numbers. You can try to call this number and place the order. Honestly speaking, we placed one of those orders and we still are waiting for the top vest, whatever the winter vest is. Back in February we sent this kind of place, this order of ours, and still we are waiting the response. And at this point of time I cannot actually reach anybody by any of those telephone numbers. They say, no, we have this available, but you can take it. But maybe it's possible to take those, but somehow I cannot reach anybody by those phone numbers. Colleagues, do you have any questions or remarks?
There were 2 press conferences in Union nearby here yesterday. There were representatives of international Ukrainian diaspora from Hungary, from Poland, from elsewhere. So they reported on the support of battalions with humanitarian aids and other volunteer supplies. Does your volunteer movement has any sort of coordination with overseas Ukrainian communities? And secondly, is there any sign of a dialogue between you and the Ministry of Defense? It's a bit of oxymoron to speak about volunteer movement coordination because volunteers are individual by their nature, and there were attempts to coordinate volunteer movement for over a year now. Probably we do need to somehow join our efforts, but to do it completely in a way as to have a joint center to coordinate all of volunteers in the country. It might not be possible because we are passionate people and we go our own ways. Many of our volunteers try to establish contact with the government, with the Ministry of Defense. I can only tell them they're really heroes in their attempts to break this old-time system that lingers well from the Soviet time, and it remains to be seen whether they will succeed or not, but it all goes by bits and stops because throughout the time the volunteers have been trying to teach the system work in a different way. The system fight back by teaching volunteers how to work slowly the way bureaucrats do. Things have been moving, but they do it in extremely slow pace, and it is not possible to work like this when we have a war-like situation in the country. I fully support what Diana has just said. I have pretty much the same mirror-like situation. I have no fund for myself. I'm just vicar myself. I have my team that works with me. We have people helping us in Lviv. They do those nets and full supplies, etc. And I'm grateful to every volunteer who works with me. But I can tell you that in my city of Poltava, I've been trying to contact some oblast level administration, government, but it was, a waste of time. I really spent, say, an hour sitting in wait for this meeting, and I eventually failed because that head of local government, it appeared, he went to the ATO area and was not able to meet me. Anyway, we need some help in this relation. I mean, the help from the government. A question from the Crisis Media Center. We've been hearing of less and less support from the public to army. What are the most immediate needs of the army? What is most needed on the front line? Or maybe there are things that are no longer needed there. Maybe it's better to send in to donate money for volunteers to sort out what's needed. And finally, what are the options for those who have no money but can contribute with their efforts, with their hands, with their knowledge, maybe by doing something or preparing something? Right, we have a rather serious financial crisis in the volunteer movement. People have been more reluctant in sending in money compared to the situation we had at the beginning of the ATO or the de facto war. Some say people have burned out. I'm not sure this is the case. I think our people are not like that, but the case is rather about this kind of truce situation which many people regard as the end of the war. There are journalists that call the war ended or call for ending the war. This also has its impact. We also see some kind of program being implemented of late. We see some churches telling the parishioners that, okay, this is not our war, we need to end it, we need to stop it where we are now. Even Sviatoslav Vakarchuk, regarded by many as the spiritual leader of the nation, me included, he's made a nice video clip called "This is Not Your War." It has been broadcasted on many channels, and essentially it sends a message of a bigger, greater war waged by oligarchs with big capitals and not the war of the people. But this is really the war to restore our boundaries and our frontiers back and restoring the statehood of our country. Yes, this is the war where our fathers and sons die, and this is really a painful topic for me because I also had to help with bringing in death bags to the front line, not just equipment or clothes or boots. I can tell you that we are kind of focal point, connecting point between the people, the public, and the front line. Yes, we do all sorts of things that we do ourselves, be it tactical gloves or belts or camouflage nets, and we involve and invite people to participate and get involved. If they don't have money, they can easily help with their own time and effort. I'm frequently posting information on makeshift field shower to be made and delivered to the front line. And you need to understand that this is a very simple construction that means a lot for them with no other possibilities to wash themselves. At times we use old industrial containers, storage containers, to somehow use as that. And surely it is not efficient to get these used industrial containers, but sometimes this is the only possibility for people to wash themselves. And we have instead a very simple design that can be easily made by guys with crafty hands. Sergei Melnichuk, the Ukrainian Crisis Media, sent a question to Diana. You've got a foundation registered. Do you feel any assistance from this foundation as opposed to the conditions that Victoria has to endure? What are the benefits of having the fund? Or could you also recommend how to better arrange the volunteer work? Slight correction. Actually, we are in same conditions, similar conditions with Victoria, because we are considered the so-called wild volunteers. Not that we are crazy or mad, but it's because we're not registered officially and we do not cooperate closely with the government at all levels. That is, we're not the volunteer groups that work with the Ministry of Defense, etc. We are just people who are responsible before those who help us with their money or send in goods. Those who've registered officially the organizations or foundations, at times they feel benefits of the system, at times they have problems because it is not possible to account for some double-use goods through the officially registered funds, for example. And it also adds a lot of additional work, be it regular reports, financial reports as well, and from here you need to have an accountant in place, and we need to pay salaries to the staff that you effectively have. Everyone understands that salary is necessary, but this is about going official, and it's with all related benefits has also certain drawbacks. We continue working unpaid without any official relations with the government. We are not sure how it will end, but we'll see. We'll have to see. Thank you. And one more question. Speaking of NATO standards, say the US Army, for example, is procured and provided in many respects by private companies. Do you think that the volunteer movement needs to go professional to become kind of private supplier for the Ukrainian army, to do it in a more professional yet private way? No, I don't think so, because it is not rational, I think, for us rank-and-file citizens to become official assistants to the army to bring munitions in on the battlefield, say. This is really distort the situation with those officials who are authorized and responsible for doing this work. Nevertheless, for this year, we've become very nice professionals in uniform and types of uniform and types of army supplies, to the extent that we can go to the Ministry of Defense to fill in any logistics position there, in any one of us, or every one of us. At times we feel to be more professionals than the supply officers in the military, but it is how our life turned on us, and now this is just one way road for us to work to support the army, whether paid by the Ministry of Defense or not. If the Ministry of Defense had someone like Lydia Shapovalova, the lady I have in Lviv, I think the war would be over and we would come victorious in that war. This Lydia, she's a marvelous personality. She manages to do just everything. And with more people like her, we would really be over with that conflict, with that war. I think people in the ministry, they have to fire this huge red tape machinery that effectively fights back. Diana Makarova, the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, you mentioned that someone from the Ministry of Defense would not allow you to go to the front lines, saying that it is dangerous, it is dangerous, there's shooting there, etc. Could you give us names of those? Well, it happens at every blog post. We have blog posts with police officers from Kharkiv, from the other side. The times they might try to prevent us, but we also have other blog posts with, as we call them, our guys staying there, and they easily let us in, and they even provide us with coverage. Actually, there are 3 front lines there, and there are some last lines, back lines that may have everything there, up to personnel vehicles, armored personnel vehicles, etc. But if we go to the first line of defense, where guys been sitting for months in wet trenches with nothing to eat, with at times having to use spoiled foods, these guys do have a dissenting opinion and view of their life, and they have to use old city buses and old cars to move between them. It is not that we are not allowed in. We've been warned that if there is some shooting there, we are warned by the military that it might be dangerous, but it's ultimately about us to decide whether we should rely on the information or just go without paying any attention to it. I work with the so-called CIMIC service, which is the service to liaise between the military and the volunteers. And this civic service, they do provide us with valuable information about the situation there, and we are thankful to them for that. And Victoria and Robin also help us with this information. I have a kind of bodyguard, and we have a guard from Konotop, the so-called Moidadir, and they are a nice team. There's a number of us from Kyiv, from Poltava, from Konotop, Dnipro-Dzerzhinsk. We would collect all the loads. It turns actually an all-Ukrainian convoy, gathering all sorts of stuff from Lviv to Kharkiv. And we are always confident, and I'm confident because we have very nice guys protecting us as guards. That is to say that not a single one from the National Guard of Ukraine or battalions or Ministry of Defense official make any barriers to us. Say. So is it just police officers from Kharkiv Oblast that prevent you? There can be differences because we may be stopped and told that, okay, there is heavy shelling ahead, and you have to wait here until it is over. That is to say that you are just worried for your own safety. Yeah, exactly. But there are some out-order situations when we are deep behind the front line and people may be reluctant to let us through, but we've never been in such situations before. I had a similar circumstance about 3rd of May when there were rumors of a great separatist offensive to be. And we were there together with Robin, and we would wait the time out to wear out this tensing of situation. We would hate, being a nuisance for our military servicemen. We would not like to be just a nuisance from them. Yeah, you should understand that we are not combatants. Our munitions are the goods and the foods that we're bringing. Okay, thank you. You also mentioned some battalions or brigades with people being heavily understaffed and undersupplied. Could you provide more details about that? Well, let us put it plain. That for this year, the logistical supply to the army has improved manifold, but there are problems, say, with food supplies in 28th Brigade. For some reason, they continue having problems with it. There are issues with technical medicine, and 24th Brigade and IDA Battalion fall well within the category. We can even make a list of these shortcomings or drawbacks or deficiencies, and it will be a long list, I can assure you. We have certain list of those units that we serve for, but still the list should be exhaustive in the final count. So we would really appreciate some more specific information, some detailed information. And you mentioned just a couple of battalions so far. Well, it's because of the shortage of time we have. We've pre-agreed it with David Brown. You know him. He's a volunteer working in the Ministry of Defense, and we will provide more coverage of these improper supply cases, and we will notify about that just to make sure about what's happening there, because we have information about Ministry of Defense regularly supplying the people on the front line with everything necessary, and still we have deficiencies. We need to find this middle link that is the culprit of the situation. And I could mention the situation with the Kyivshina battalion. They've got a lot of military boots, kind of, but these were the ones with flat foot syndrome, and normal people could not wear this type of footwear. The quality of sewing was substandard, with these already improper boots falling to pieces very soon. So the situation can get ridiculous at some point. Thank you. Robin, you also mentioned at the beginning that you offered some officials to go to the front line to see themselves, and they would deny the possibility, saying that it is too risky and dangerous there. Could you provide more names about it? We had multiple meetings and press conferences, and we were asked questions about that. In our responses, we would say directly, come with us, please, to see with your own eyes how servicemen linger there, try what they have to eat there, try to spend the night there, the night in rot and filth. And but still, any names? No, I'm not going to give you specific names, because we had many people asking, and we would, in response, inviting them to there without any volunteers to go there. We always offer people to go with us. At one point, I asked David Brown to go with us, and he accepted the challenge, and from the information I've got, he's going to come with us in a matter of days. So the key question is not to see the number of volunteers eventually reduced. There should be more of us, because we are the key inspectors in the situation, monitoring what's happening. Okay, thank you for the briefing.